listening to the AOTA podcast. Here is your host, Matt Brandenburg.
Our presenting sponsor for the AOTA podcast is New York University Steinhardt's Department of Occupational Therapy. Today, we are joined by Vijay Muni and Jayson Davies. Thank you both so much for sharing your time and being on our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Of course, you are both AI experts, I like to say, and recently presented a webinar with AOTA titled Integrating Artificial Intelligence into OT Practice, which outlined how to use artificial intelligence to enhance occupational therapy services for clients. And that is also going to be our topic for today. But before we dive into it, could you tell us a little bit about your background in occupational therapy and what motivates you to investigate the use of AI in OT?
So, hi everyone, my name is Vijay Muni. I'm an occupational therapist in New York City in outpatient hand therapy and sports medicine. My background in AI is I presented at my state conference, New York State Occupational Therapy Association, on the use of AI in OT, as well as participated in this awesome webinar with AOTA, with Jayson, Ganesh, and Sarah. In terms of my background with AI, I've used AI to come up with treatment plans for my patients, especially for cases that are a bit difficult. And I've used it to also help me with my personal life while I'm studying for the CHT exam. I've used AI to help me come up with a concrete study plan, really help me keep in track and prioritize the stuff that's going on in my personal life to really help me succeed. I've used it to help prioritize various tasks that are important to really help me succeed in my personal life, and it's just been a great help, and it's very efficient.
I like that you've applied artificial intelligence to your own personal life, and it sounds like it's helped you improve your performance in some meaningful occupations, which would include studying for the CHT, treatment planning at work. Jayson, how about you? Could you introduce us to some of your work?
Yeah. First, Matt, thanks so much for having me on. To be called an AI expert is definitely not something I would expect to hear. And I definitely don't consider myself an AI expert. But I am here because I like to play around with AI. And I think you become an expert by first playing around with something and engaging in it with the most. And that's what I've been doing a lot. I am a school-based OT by trade. However, now I run an online business called the OT Schoolhouse, where I support school-based occupational therapy practitioners. And I'm using AI every day in order to help school-based OT practitioners. I use it to help me craft email responses. I use it to help me create goals for school-based OT goals. And I just play around with it, honestly, to learn what it can do, what it's good at, what it's not good at. And so that's really where my expertise has kind of evolved from. However, it's also going forward in the sense that I recently have a IRB that has been approved, where we are going to be looking at how pediatric and school-based OT practitioners use AI and what they anticipate they might be able to do with AI in the future. So that's very exciting. And yeah, just excited to talk more with you about AI and Vijay as well.
Absolutely. Congratulations on that study. We'll have to have you back on so we can discuss some of the results and methods that went into that. And you are both most definitely OT experts and bring a unique OT lens to artificial intelligence. Vijay, I love those personal examples of how you've used AI to bolster your own efforts in studying and preparing for practice, and Jayson as well. Could you kind of introduce us to artificial intelligence? What are some of these platforms that you're using to interact with AI? And how would you say it's kind of evolved to the point where it can be beneficial to occupational therapy practitioners?
So whenever somebody asks me about what AI is and how it differs from a traditional program, I usually just say that in your computer you have these algorithms that are software programs that follow a set of rules, whereas AI, they kind of learn those rules through a various of functions, and they undergo various training data. And it just continues to learn more and more and more based on the data that is being sent to the software, to the program. And it's just constantly learning, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly updating. In terms of various AI programs that I've used with patients that have helped, it's not available for Android phones, but if you have an iPhone, there's an app called Seeing AI. And essentially, it's great for if you work with a low vision population. With the app, you just scan something. It'll tell you if there's a person in front of you. It'll tell you what type of currency you see, what color you have in front of you, or what objects are in front of you. It's a really nice program. I've used it for one of my patients who just has low vision, and it's been a game changer for him. Same thing, you can use ChatGPT to help you come up with a nice study program, especially if you're studying for that exam. ChatGPT has helped me with coming up with a good study program. There is another program called XR Health, especially for those of you who are in an outpatient ortho side. XR Health basically allows you, it allows your patient to do various exercises, their HEP, and it corrects them in real time. So they just use the camera, and the camera from your phone is using its vision and it's analyzing the types of movements you're doing and provides you with real-life feedback that you will not be able to provide to the patient while they're at home. So it's a great adjunct to their HEP, and you can remotely monitor it too. So that's even better.
And that's a good list of resources. Jayson, for you, what are some of the most common ways you're using artificial intelligence that's beneficial to your own practice or the practice of the many school-based and pediatric therapists that you design resources and trainings for?
Yeah, so I'll start with the tools that are just very broad and general that I think anyone can find use for. And, that's just like the everyday household names, right? Like ChatGPT, Google's is now called Gemini, I believe. You have whatever Microsoft is calling it, the pilot one that they use. Those are just general GPTs that I think anyone can find useful. They don't have a ton of occupational therapy knowledge behind them from what I've experienced, but they're enough to be dangerous with, I think. But what's awesome is that we are starting to see a lot more tools emerge that are coming with a background of some occupational therapy or at least some healthcare related professionals behind it. And they're developing tools that can be very beneficial to both us and our clients, kind of like the Seeing AI tool that Vijay was just talking about. One of them is called Ella.Kids, ELLA.KIDS. That's the website. And basically you just tell it what you need a social story about, and it will create an 8 or 10 page social story complete with pictures. So if you have a pediatric client or a school-based OT client, or maybe even an adult that you want to develop the social story for, you just say, hey, I have this person named Jayson. They are, or he is, or she is 8 years old, and we need to create a social story about not biting on their nails or whatever it might be. It'll just instantly, or I shouldn't say instantly, within like 5 minutes, just basically create a social story for you. There's another tool called MagicSchool.AI, and it's really geared toward teachers, but therapists are finding that helpful as well, especially in the schools when it comes to writing goals or developing progress reports or reports in general. Those are the two big ones, I think.
Yeah. These are awesome resources. And I love the example of how you each are bringing your own kind of passion to using AI as a tool to make your own practice more efficient and provide valuable and good resources to the people you work with, while also not ignoring your clinical reasoning and relying fully on the AI, but using it as a supplement. How would you kind of translate that skill set to someone who maybe isn't as tech savvy or maybe isn't sure how to find all these AI resources? What would you say to them about the importance of incorporating technology and innovative approaches to what they do as an occupational therapy practitioner?
I really love this question because I think it's going to help us, but I think we are in the moment with ChatGPT where everyone is honestly just trying to figure out how it's going to help us right now. I don't think we have really even scratched the surface when you start to think, as many occupational therapy practitioners do, how it's going to actually support our clients. Like, we're all just trying to figure it out. And if that's you, if you're just trying to figure it out, I would definitely start with probably like Google Gemini, because I don't even think you need a Google account to ask to get access to it. And if you are willing to create a free account, ChatGPT is probably my main go-to. But just start asking it questions, like just stupid questions, honestly, like nothing related to OT. Just ask it questions like you would have the first time you ever learned about Google, and just have fun with it, because that's honestly the way I got started. I think that's the way that most people got started. I mean, how many people were introduced to AI by just generating a picture, because like it was so novel for us just to be able to say, hey, write me a picture of a cat on the moon, and all of a sudden a cat on the moon just shows up in front of you. So I think that is just where to get started. And then once you get started, you can start to go beyond that and think, okay, well, if I could do this, now what can I do? And if I can do this for me, what can I teach a client how to use AI in order to solve their problem? And I think that's where it's going to get really fun.
Great point. And Vijay, I know you too wanted to add to this question. What would you say to some people who maybe are a little hesitant about using AI in their practice? What can they do to start?
I would say for everyone who's interested, look at the AOTA for any resources. I know we did this wonderful webinar, and now we're doing this awesome podcast. And there are resources out there, so start talking to your colleagues. As Jayson said, try to use ChatGPT, use Gemini, and just start playing with the AI. Like Jayson said, I mean, that's what I started to do. But also, there's one important key to note is in OT school, we learned about all these different paradigm shifts. I mean, when OT first started, our roots were in mental health, and then it started to evolve and got more phys-dis, more mental health, and into various areas. And I think now we are at a very special point because technology is starting to advance. And who better to encompass technology for our clients if not OTs? We use assistive technology so frequently with our patients, and it's made a tremendous impact on them. So it's not a question of if, but it's going to be a question of when. And I truly think AI will be able to augment the services we deliver to our patients in a wonderful, holistic meaning.
Very well said. If there's one profession that's an expert in activities of daily living, it's occupational therapy. And we're going to need creative problem solvers and doers who can find innovative and evidence-backed ways to incorporate artificial intelligence to maximize participation and performance of activities of daily living. So I really love those recommendations that you gave. What about ethical factors when using AI? Are there considerations or ethical questions or concerns that may arise when interfacing with AI and as it relates to the health of a client, for example?
There was a study conducted last year by Ahmed and his colleagues. And one of the takeaways I've gotten from the study is that they cautioned over-reliance on using AI will increase laziness and loss of decision-making skills with our brains. I mean, our brains are supercomputers. So if we start to delegate and we start to depend on AI to coming up with our treatment plans and our goals, then we just lose that executive functional skills and that clinical reasoning that makes us very unique. So we don't want to lose that. AI should be used as an adjunct. It shouldn't replace your clinical reasoning at all.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've had a lot of changes over the years, right? Like I was looking at an article from 2018, actually. It was called Occupational Therapy and the Fourth Industrial Revolution out of the Canadian Journal of Occupational Therapy. And they really talked about how we're diving into that fourth industrial revolution right now. And what Vijay was just talking about is something very real. But at the same time, I think we've also had some changes in our lives over time. And it's not that we'll necessarily lose skills, it's that we might have more time for new skills. And the same way with Google, right? Like, I think a lot of people lost their minds when Google started being able to tell people, like, yeah, so-and-so was born on this day. I didn't have to go ask them. I didn't have to go read a book to find out. Like, I can just ask Google. And now we're there with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can go so much further. AI can go so much further. So I see that fear a little bit. But I think we've really got to some degree, understand it's here, and we can either potentially push back on it. I know some schools are like preventing their students from even being able to access it. But I think to some degree, we also need to like understand, hey, it's here. How can we best use it? And the reason I'm really leaning toward this way, I know some people might think otherwise, but I think if we don't learn how to use it as a profession, then I think someone else is going to learn how to use it to replace our profession or to replace us as therapists. And I just kind of have that fear. And so I really want us to dive into that. As far as, just everyday ethical stuff, I think that anytime you're putting anything onto a computer, you have to be careful, right? Every single OT practitioner is bound by some form of a law, whether it be HIPAA, whether it be FERPA, whether it be both or something else if you're in another country, perhaps. But we have to be very careful. And the information that we are putting into a computer, I think if you are using AI for work at all or related to a client, patient, student, whatever at all, you need to be checking with your supervisors to see if that's okay. And if they don't know, then I probably wouldn't be touching it. Now, that's in relationship to like client data, name, birthday, social, stuff like that. I think you can, I know people are doing this, I'm doing this, is you can use pseudonyms within ChatGPT. And you can kind of say, hey, John, because I use John for everything, is doing this and this and this. Please help me develop a treatment plan. So if you're using a pseudonym, then you're kind of easing that ethical liability that you might have on yourself. Whereas if you use this, I default to student. I know not everyone uses student in their terminology, but if you default to using the student's real name, that's where you could potentially get in trouble. There's a lot of people out there, or a lot of companies, I should say, that are somehow getting HIPAA and FERPA compliance within their AI program. I don't know how all that works, but if you're doing this specifically for work, then I would check with your supervisors to say, hey, is our program HIPAA or FERPA compliant? And honestly, we should be asking that anyways, whether or not AI is embedded or not.
Yeah, I think Jayson brings up a very valid point, because over the years, there are a lot of tech companies that have been under fire for data breaches. And so using a false name, a pseudonym, is a great way to protect a client's personal information. And more companies now are starting to use generative data. So instead of having all the specific information that would clearly alienate one specific person, can be traced back to one person, it's just general information where it could be applied to thousands or millions of other people. It doesn't tie back to this one person, right? So I think, as Jayson said, that's a great solution. And I see some companies are already starting to do that with their HIPAA compliant software.
Absolutely. And that's a great reminder that AI can be such a wonderful tool and wonderful supplement to practice. But just like using any tool, it should be handled with care, and with a great deal of care, especially when it's being used to help come up with intervention ideas or at any stage in the OT process. It's important to really meld and add clinical reasoning and perspective to AI. And I'd love to dive into that with both of you, kind of talking about how AI can be implemented across the OT process. So with our first step, how would you say practitioners can use AI to automate assessment or to add value or expertise or perspective to their own assessment approach.
Yeah, I've played around with this a little bit, mostly on just ChatGPT, where I've fed ChatGPT some scores. I told ChatGPT, this is what I observed a student in the classroom, and the student scored this standard score on the Bot 2 and the VMI for the school-based OT practitioners out there. And then I said, all right, help me come up with some potential ideas based upon that. How do my observations match the scores, or how do the scores not reflect the observation that I gave you? And ChatGPT will spit that back out at you, and it'll say, below average on the VMI does not correlate with what you observed with a student actually writing nicely in the classroom, or vice versa. Maybe it'll tell you that there is a match there. The other thing that you can do is, once you have a good portion of your assessment completed and you put it in there, you can kind of give it your disorganized thoughts about what you're thinking for your conclusion, and then it can make it nice and pretty. So that's using ChatGPT, which is completely free. However, there are some new tools, and I think Vijay has some ideas for his realm, but within school-based occupational therapy and pediatric OT, I know Everbility is one where it's actually created by an OT and her partner down in Australia, and you can create your own template for a report. And then you can basically input your notes, and based upon your notes, it'll start to form an evaluation report for you. So that's just one of the many things that I know are popping up these days.
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest Everbility, as Jayson said, because Everbility is a great tool to use. I know they're still trying to market for the U.S. space, but I played around with it. It's a very, very novel, great tool to use, and I see a lot of great potential with it. Currently, there is another EMR that can be used in the States. It's called DeepScribe. Essentially, you and your patient are having a conversation. DeepScribe is on. It's listening to the conversation, right? You're getting the HPI, right? You're getting the interview done. DeepScribe will take that information, will come up with a nice HPI. It'll come up with the goals and the assessment for you. And it's just very novel. It just takes whatever the conversation was, whatever you said, and it comes up with it right then and there. I've used ChatGPT, where I've used it to create goals. So as Jayson said, you feed it objective data. So I would say, this is what the range of motion was. This is what the manual muscle testing was. This is what I saw for X, Y, and Z. I put that in, and then I would add a line saying, create 3 long-term occupation-based goals, 3 short-term occupation-based goals, and an assessment. And ChatGPT will make an amazing assessment. The goals are semi-decent, but you can always adjust it here and there to really fit for that particular client. One concept I really do like from ChatGPT is, let's just say you don't like an assessment or a goal. There is a function for ChatGPT to reword it or to recreate it a different way, and you can do it a few times until you see the way that you like it. So you can always copy that assessment over, modify it if you need to, and yeah, it's great. It's not perfect. There are definitely times where you have to adjust it or modify it, but it's a relatively great assessment and goals that are created.
Yeah. And Matt, if I can add really quickly, because something that I would not recommend doing is to feed in raw data to ChatGPT and ask it to score something for you. I tried that, and ChatGPT will think that it has the right answers for you. It does not. It is hallucinating. It does not have at least when I tested this, it did not have the Bot 2, the VMI, those manuals uploaded to its database where it could say a raw score for an 8-year-old of 22 means that they are average, below average, above average, or whatnot. It could not do that. However, that also really excites me, because if I can think to use ChatGPT in that way, you can bet that some of our huge publishers like WPS, maybe even AOTA with some of the assessments that they have. Like there could be a tool where we can do that in the future, where we can just say, hey, Johnny scored raw score 8 on whatever subtest, a 10, a 12, a 13. What does that mean? And we might be getting really close to that, which is exciting.
That is exciting. The implications of AI are many and exciting. To be honest, I do like how you're encouraging clinicians to proceed with caution as well, because it seems like AI is a wonderful organizer of information, but also can't always be trusted. Just like we learn how to, analyze evidence and find evidence-backed protocols when coming up with interventions or assessments. We need to make sure that this AI isn't just making something up and drawing on something to provide an answer, because I think one thing that AI might not be great at is admitting when it's wrong.
Yeah. And really quickly, if I can add to that, when humans make mistakes without knowing, we call it lying, but we've come up with this hallucination term for AI, and it is just straight up lying. And so we have to take it with a grain of salt, and we have to fact check anything that we get from AI. It doesn't matter if it's a free AI, a paid AI, we got to fact check it.
It goes back to the ethical considerations too, because a lot of stuff that's happening now with AI is deep fakes. So when something gets posted, how do you know if it's real or it's fake, right? It's very hard to tell. And so one cautionary tale I would say is for clients or even practitioners who are starting to incorporate AI, don't believe everything that you're getting, because some of it everything you see on the internet, because some of that can be produced by a deepfake. And so it may not be the best evidence or the most accurate or up-to-date or the safest tool for your clients.
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying those both. And hallucinating, I haven't heard that term in relation to AI, so that's a new one to add to the vernacular. I like it a lot, and I like how this kind of emphasizes the importance of the human aspect of occupational therapy. You've given some great recommendations of how practitioners could incorporate, queries to AI to help them treatment plan and to help analyze data that they've been collecting from clients or from patients. But it really is up to the clinician to make that human connection and to help identify what tasks and goals and performance areas are the most meaningful to the person, which I don't think is something that AI can truly do very efficiently yet. Our presenting sponsor is New York University Steinhardt's top-ranked Department of Occupational Therapy, which now offers an entry-level OTD for aspiring occupational therapists. NYU additionally offers advanced degrees for practicing therapists that can be completed in person or online. Study and work with leading educators, researchers, and master clinicians in the vibrant setting of New York City, and have access to a diverse patient population and extensive healthcare system. Learn to deliver exceptional patient care, or deepen your knowledge and practice as you focus on applied scientific inquiry and clinical areas such as pediatrics, developmental disabilities, mental health, and assistive rehabilitation technologies. Take the next step by visiting steinhardt.nyu.edu/OT to learn more. I was going to ask if we could go over some case studies or clinical examples. You've both illustrated how you're incorporating AI into your day-to-day. Could you share maybe a specific example of how you or a clinician has used AI in practice to help a patient achieve an increased performance or outcome?
Yeah, I'm no longer in the position where I'm practicing with clients on a day-to-day basis, but I do have a lot of interaction with school-based OT practitioners, and some of the things that I'm hearing about is the excitement about helping students with like a learning disability. For example, a student with a learning disability might be able to list out ideas, but struggle to turn that list of ideas into a coherent paragraph. And with ChatGPT, they can learn how to basically put 4 simple sentences more in bullet point format, and then ChatGPT will then kind of put that into a actual paragraph for them. And that really gets me excited because I know teachers are going to be using this, school-based OT practitioners, pediatric therapists. I think that's going to be really cool. In fact, as I'm talking, there's an app that just came out for the iPad, and it can actually almost, how do I want to say this? It is not a replacement for the VMI, the visual motor integration test, but it's in a way doing the VMI test on an iPad, and it is scoring it in real time. Now, I say that with the idea we're talking about AI. I don't even know if AI is actually incorporated into that, but I think it's not too far of a jump from there to basically an iPad learning what a child means when they write something and being able to potentially turn that into a coherent letter or a coherent word or even a coherent thought and sentence. What I mean by that is my scribble, if my scribble consistently means letter A to me, then an iPad could potentially take my scribble and turn it into an actual letter A. Or if my name looks non-compatible to anything you've ever seen, but to me, I consistently write my name with the same scribble, well, it can just automatically turn that scribble into my name. And I think that kind of going back to how it's going to support our clients long-term, that's, again, what I'm excited for. And I really see it as the future of AI.
One of my clients, he was a large rotator cuff repair, and he was low vision. He has low vision, and he has a hard time seeing. And so I recommended the Seeing AI app to him because he was having a hard time seeing. He couldn't tell what the denominations were when he was handing out money. He couldn't tell color. And so when I recommended the Seeing AI app to him, it was a game changer. He was able to use that to identify colors. So when I started having him do TheraBands, and I told him the blue one, instead of saying I can't see color, or rather I don't know what blue is, he'll just take out the app, point to the different TheraBands, and it'll point to him and say, this is blue or purple or green, whatever the case is. Same thing whenever he's at the store, he would pull it out and it'll help him figure out if he has a $1, $5, $10 to purchase something. If there's a document he needs to read, the Seeing AI app will allow him to just read through the document. So the Seeing AI app will just verbalize what the document says and so on. And for him, it was a game changer. He was extremely, extremely happy to find this app where it just improved his function 1,000 times more. In the past, he's always had to rely on somebody, but now that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful example. I think both of you touch on how technology can really be used to make life so much easier and help people overcome kind of those daily obstacles or specific tasks that cause them stress and cause, a breakdown in a larger activity. And it's so important that occupational therapy practitioners are prepared to use these types of tech and recommend them and educate the people that we work with on how to best use them, because it really is going to add to the overall well-being of the people that we work with. I want to ask as well about how AI could be used to enhance certain work processes. Do either of you have applications or have you seen AI in use to kind of streamline whether it be documentation, scheduling, or workflow within OT practice?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many apps, and every day there's new apps coming out. And also you have to be careful because you might find an awesome app and then it's gone the next day because there's just so many AI apps coming and going. Two pop up and two disappear the same day. So got to be, I think, a little careful with getting too attached to AI apps at this point. But I kind of second what Vijay was saying, though, with ChatGPT. I think it's so general that you can get a little lost in it, but once you figure out how to use it, it can do so much for you. You don't necessarily need an AI app specifically developed for healthcare in order to do healthcare related stuff. And with ChatGPT, I think that if you are that type of person that that sometimes struggles to get your wording right, and you are really good. You know exactly what you want to say to an extent, like in bullet point form, but you need it to look nice for the billers or whatnot. That's where ChatGPT can really help you out there. I think that's the way that I have idealized using it most, is just kind of like putting my ideas into coherent thoughts. I will say one thing about ChatGPT is that if you already have an account and you haven't done this already, is you can play around with the settings. You can go into the settings and kind of personalize it. And so you can tell it like a little bit about yourself so that it kind of understands the way that you should, or the way that you might typically write. And so if you go into those settings and you say, "Hi, I'm Jayson. I'm an occupational therapy practitioner. I work as a school-based occupational therapy practitioner. A lot of what I write about is healthcare, and I have to write SOAP notes, and I have to write SMART goals, and I have to write these types of things." Then it's going to start to learn, all right, Jayson's in healthcare. We need to write a certain way because his audience is going to expect a certain thing. And ChatGPT will kind of tailor it around that. So I wouldn't say it's an expert level tip, but it's an advanced level tip to go into your settings in ChatGPT to make that change.
In terms of those calendar apps, one app that I've used is called Motion AI. There's another one called Reclaim AI. I believe with Reclaim AI, you can also sync it to your Google account too. So if you're the type of person where you have a Google Calendar for everything, you can use Reclaim AI and be able to sync that information onto your Google Calendar, vice versa. And both apps are great, and it'll help you prioritize your various tasks that need to be done. It'll help make your life much more efficient.
Hearing you both describe these wonderful applications and recommendations, it kind of paints this image in my mind of AI acting as an occupational therapy practitioner for OTs, to helping us kind of organize thoughts and maximize our performance in our occupation as OTs. Yeah,
definitely. And sorry, I don't want to get too like doomsday here, but a lot of people are asking, hey, is AI going to take our job away? And I've been thinking a lot about that from both the OT as well as the OTA perspective. And AI cannot take away our, at least at this time, right? Like AOTA cannot take away our one-on-one interactions with clients. It cannot have that real-time conversation, real-time visual, real-time tactile, proprioceptive feedback, like everything, right? But it can definitely help us with a lot of the administrative tasks that we have to do. The same way that an assistant of some kind could help with that. And if you think of AI as that assistant, whether it be a research assistant, whether it be someone almost like watching you and taking notes for you, like I think that's kind of where you get to distinguish the difference between what AI can do and what it can't do right now.
Yeah, I think Jayson's definitely right on that. Epic, for those of you guys who are in a hospital setting and use Epic is partnering up with Microsoft AI in creating more efficient documentation. So for those of you who are very familiar with your smart text, smart phrases, Microsoft AI is looking to create an AI feature for whenever you start creating your flow sheets or your templates for your patients and so on. The idea behind it is to really improve documentation and to really streamline the process and make it much more efficient, because you see so many patients a day. Nobody loves doing documentation at the end of the day. So the idea was to help to improve your documentation speed and to really make your documentation much more efficient for billers and for those third-party payers. But on the downside, if you're freeing up a lot of your documentation time by using AI and you might be done with your notes in, let's say, 10 minutes, you might end up seeing more patients as a result of that. So there are pros and cons to every decision.
Absolutely. Those are wonderful examples of how AI can really be used to supplement practice. I have loved our discussion so far. Before we wrap up, I want to ask what some of your best practices for queries or for interfacing with AI that practitioners, students, researchers, and educators can use? What are some ultimate recommendations that you would give?
Yeah. AI is, you get in or you get out what you put in, I guess you can say it. Like if you put trash in, you're going to get trash out. If you put fantastic stuff in, you're going to get generally fantastic stuff back. Of course, you still need to check it, but it's called AI prompting, or some people call it prompt engineering. It's like crafting the perfect prompt so that AI really understands what you want from it. That's kind of what I was talking a little bit about with going into the settings and kind of telling the AI about you so that it knows kind of what you want. But each time that you provide a prompt and ask it for something, you need to provide it some color there as well. A lot of people just want to like ask it for something very quick, right? Like, give me a treatment plan for a student with autism. Well, I mean, ask an OT to give you a treatment plan for a student with autism, right? Like, there's going to be so many follow-up questions. Well, ChatGPT isn't going to ask you that follow-up question. It's just going to assume, okay, that's what you want. Here you go. Here's 2 lines of what you can do with a student with autism. Versus if you say, hey, I have an 8-year-old autistic student who wants to do this and this and this, but struggles with this and this and this, and I want you to act like a school-based occupational therapy practitioner or like a pediatric outpatient practitioner, well, now you're going to get a much better response. And the more specific you get with that prompt, the better that response is going to get. Now, this is another little tip for all you. If you use Google Drive, use Google Drive. If you use Notion, but save your prompts. Like if you find out that one prompt that you use works really well, save it somewhere, because you might remember that prompt, 10 days, 2 weeks, a month later and say, man, where's that prompt that worked really well? And you won't be able to find it. So create a folder in your Google Drive or in your email, if you email yourself stuff, wherever it might be. But I would start to build a prompt library so that you can keep some of those prompts that work really well.
That's a great idea, Jayson, about using Google Drive to save those prompts. I've been just saving those prompts on ChatGPT. For those of you who have used ChatGPT or rather haven't, ChatGPT has this awesome feature where you ask it a series of questions and you can start multiple chats with it. So I have one chat for my study guide for the CHD exam. I have another one for disc radius fractures or other types of fractures. I have another chat for tendon repairs, another chat for shoulder repairs, and so on. And so I've saved those prompts there. The nice thing about it is with these multiple chats, it's only going to remember based on what you've asked in that prior chat. So you could be spending an entire hour talking about disc radius fractures and then move on to something else, right, to go on to a different topic. But if you continue to use that same chat and you bring back one question on disc radius fractures, it'll remember everything and it'll just continue to go on based on that. So that's my tip for just organizing, your treatment planning or just prompts. Have multiple chats out there for various things and don't integrate them because that's where it can get confusing.
Yeah, definitely. I just scrolled through my chats and I probably have like 50. And if you're listening again and you've never seen that, like think of one chat as an individual chat with a person, right? Like I tell Matt all this information that we've been talking about today, but then I go to another chat with Jessica over on a whole new screen, right? Like she doesn't know anything that I just talked about with Matt. And so that's kind of how the chats work within ChatGPT. So having different chats, good idea, but also hard to keep organized when you got 50. It's like tabs on your Google Chrome window. They're just everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely a victim of tab overuse. Those are some wonderful recommendations. And it's, kind of how we need to add to our OT toolbox consistently to have interventions that we can use and bolster the different approaches that we use in our practice. We can help the AI do the same and bolstering its OT knowledge and kind of bringing more of an OT lens to these supports that we're receiving. We've covered so many awesome resources for our listeners today. Are there any additional, sites or programs or resources that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
I'd say YouTube. Quite honestly, there's a lot of, if you just start YouTubing how to use AI in your practice, you might find some nice videos. I'd say take some continuing educations. Definitely get on to the AOTA's web list of resources where we've talked about all the different resources we've used in AI, the webinar, this awesome podcast, and so on. And just start talking to your colleagues, because chances are some of them have started incorporating it. And a great way to get involved and to learn is to talk and try it out.
Yeah, I think that's just my key takeaway, especially if you're just getting into this, is just play around with it. Get into ChatGPT, get into Gemini, get into Otter, or not Otter, sorry. That's another one that I won't go into right now, but into Copilot with Microsoft, and just play around. It doesn't need to be anything related to occupational therapy until you're comfortable with it. But just play around with it. Have it create you a rap, or tell it to design you a picture of a pig on the moon, or whatever you enjoy. If you like to cook, ask it for a recipe based upon what's in your refrigerator. Just have fun with it, and then you'll be surprised. You won't even be at your computer. You'll be out at the grocery market or something, and all of a sudden an idea is going to pop into your head about how you can use AI with your client. And that's just fun. Like it's an aha moment. It's just kind of, wait, I was using this to build recipes for myself, and now I see how I can use it with a client. And yeah, I don't know. That's just a fun experience for me, and I hope you get to enjoy it too.
Absolutely. I love those recommendations, and I can't imagine a better application of the unique perspective that occupational therapy practitioners see the world with than to use it creatively to find awesome applications of artificial intelligence to improve other people's lives. We're now to our golden nugget segment to end the show. If each of you could share one piece of knowledge or one recommendation to practitioners, what would you say?
Really, the best way to learn a new skill, to do anything, to really get immersed in something, is to actually do it. It's the same thing like for splinting. For those of you guys who are now patient hand therapy, nobody is an awesome splinter the first time they do it. The only way to really learn splinting or to do splinting is to just get immersed in it and continue to do it. The more you use, the more you do, the better you're going to be. And that's the same thing with incorporating AI in your practice. You just got to immerse yourself in it, because at some point, AI will be the future of OT and the future of rehab. And if you don't get immersed with it and you don't really learn how to incorporate it in your practice, you may fall behind with the times, right? It's not a question of if AI will come in. It's really just a question of when, especially as technology just starts to get more advanced and you can perform surgeries in literally another country by using robots and so on, and with self-driving cars and so on. Technology is just improving, and it's really up to us to harness that technology and use it for our patients. Otherwise, we might be swept under the rug. So you just got to get involved, and you got to start using it little bits at a time.
Templates. One thing, we talked about prompting with ChatGPT, but we didn't talk about templates. And a lot of people right now, we're waiting for something to come out that can just write our reports for us. But in the meantime, a lot of us have developed report templates, whether you're in school-based pediatrics, rehab, wherever you might be. You probably have a set template that you use, whether it's for assessments, whether it's for notes, whether it's for the way that you write goals. Well, that is your own special, how do I say this? That's your bank of templates, and ChatGPT doesn't have access to your templates unless you've put those up on the web somewhere. But you do have access to those, and you can feed your templates into ChatGPT. For example, a lot of school-based OT practitioners, we're told that we need to use SMART goals. I know a lot of people use SMART goals, but it's just really a big thing in school-based OT. But everyone does it slightly different, right? You have your own own way of writing a SMART goal. And you probably use a very similar template each time that you write a new goal at every single meeting that you have to go to. Well, going back to what Vijay was talking about, having one specific chat, well, you can make one specific chat for goal writing, and you can tell that chat, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of goals. You're going to create, 5, 10, or just maybe one goal that I need right now, but I want you to follow this template. Here's my template that I use all the time. Follow this template. Don't deviate from it. So now it's got your template. Now you can say, I want a goal related to helping a student be able to write a 5-sentence paragraph, or helping a student to be able to cope when work gets difficult. And you can just tell it that goal, and it's going to use your template to then spit out a goal. We talked about goals just now, but you can imagine you can do the same thing for SOAP notes, the same thing for any type of treatment note, or during your evaluation process. Maybe if you have, maybe if you like to kind of break down any questionnaires that you receive from a parent or from a client or from whatever, you could do the same type of thing. So templates are definitely your friend when it comes to AI, as is that prompt engineering.
I love it. These are two wonderful nuggets to end our conversation on, to really be progressive and put forth the effort to try it out, familiarize yourself with some of these AI resources, and use those templates and start to incorporate some of your own clinical reasoning that you've worked so hard to develop, and take it to the next level by sharing it with AI and asking it to, organize some of those things for you. I know I've learned a lot today. I've been taking notes. I've written down some of those resources, and I'm going to go check them out and see how I can use AI to provide better care to the people that I work with. So Vijay, Jayson, thank you both so much for your time and for sharing all this wonderful knowledge with us today.
Yeah,
thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, listener, for tuning in, and thank you to NYU Steinhardt Program in Occupational Therapy for sponsoring this episode.
Thanks for listening to the AOTA podcast. Tune in again next time.